Chapter 5. Hundreds of people. London. 4 months later. Dr. Manet's house. The lodgings of Dr. Manet were on a quiet street corner, not far from Soho Square, on the afternoon of a certain fine Sunday, 4 months after the trial for treason. Mr. Garv's Lorry walked along the sunny streets to dine with the doctor. They had become friends, and when he wasn't absorbed in business matters, the quiet street corner was the sunny part of his life. Dr. Manet received such patients here as his old reputation and its revival in the floating whispers of his story brought him. His scientific knowledge and his skill in conducting clever experiments brought him moderate demand, and he earned as much as he wanted. Mr. Garv's Lorry knew about these things when he rang the doorbell of the house on that fine Sunday afternoon. Dr. Manet at home? Expected home. Miss Lucy at home? Expected home. Miss Pross at home? Possibly at home. As I am at home myself, said Mr. Lorry, I'll go upstairs. There were 3 rooms on this floor, and the doors between them were open so that the air might freely pass through them all. With a smile, Mr. Lorry noticed feminine touches all around as he passed from one room to another. The first was the best room, and in it were Lucy's birds and flowers and books and desk and work table and box of watercolors. The second was the doctor's consulting room, used also as the dining room. The third was the doctor's bedroom, and there in a corner stood the disused shoemaker's bench and tray of tools, much as it had stood in the dismal room above the wine shop in the suburb of Saint Antoine in Paris. I wonder, said Mr. Lorry, pausing in his looking about, that he keeps that reminder of his suffering. And why wonder at that was the abrupt inquiry that made him jump. It came from Miss Pross, the wild red woman, strong of hand, whom he had first met at the Royal George Hotel in Dover. I should have thought, Mr. Lorry began. Poh, you'd have thought, said Miss Pross, and Mr. Lorry said no more. How are you? Inquired that lady, then sharply, yet as if to express that she bore him no malice. I am pretty well, thank you, answered Mr. Lorry mildly. How are you? Could be better, said Miss Pross. Really? Ah, really, said Miss Pross. I am very much put out about my ladybird. Really? May I ask the cause? I don't want dozens of people who aren't at all worthy of ladybird to come here looking for her, said Miss Pross. Do dozens come for that purpose? Hundreds, said Miss Pross. It was characteristic of this lady that whenever something she said was questioned, she exaggerated. Dear me, said Mr. Lorry, as the safest remark he could think of. Mr. Lorry knew Miss Pross to be very jealous, but he also knew her by this time to be beneath the surface of her eccentricity, one of those unselfish creatures found only among women who will for pure love and admiration tie themselves to youth when they have lost it, to beauty that they never had.
Everybody present except the man who was looking at the ceiling stared at him. The object of all this staring was a young man of about 25, well-grown and good-looking, with a sunburned cheek and a dark eye. He was plainly dressed in black, and his hair, which was long and dark, was gathered in a ribbon at the back of his neck. more to be out of his way than for decoration. He was pale but otherwise quite calm. He bowed to the judge. Silence in the court, a clerk's voice rang out. Charles Darnay had the day before pleaded not guilty after he was accused of being a traitor to our serene, excellent, and so on king, by reason of his having on several occasions, and by different ways and means, assisted the French king in his wars against our serene, excellent, and so on king. That was to say, by coming and going between our said serene and excellent kingdom and that of the said French king. And furthermore, wickedly, falsely, traitorously, and otherwise evilly revealing to the said French king that what forces our king had in preparation to send to Canada and North America. This much Jerry understood with huge satisfaction and so arrived at the understanding that the prisoner Charles Darnay stood there on trial, that the jury was being sworn in, and that the Attorney General was getting ready to speak. The accused, who was and knew he was being mentally hanged, beheaded, and cut into pieces by everyone there, showed neither fear nor a theatrical scene of courage. He was quite attentive, watched what happened with a serious interest, and stood with his hands resting on the wooden bar in front of him. He happened to turn his face to the left side of the court, at about the level of his eyes. There sat two persons upon whom his gaze immediately rested. He looked so keenly that all eyes that were turned upon him now turned to them.
Is it not remarkable that Dr. Manet, without doubt innocent of any crime, should never mention the question? It's clear enough. I should think why, said Miss Pross. It's a terrible memory. True, said Mr. Lorry, and fearful to think about. Yet I still have a doubt in my mind, Miss Pross, whether it is good for Dr. Manet to have all that shut up inside him. Indeed, it's this doubt and the unease it causes me that has led me to speak to you in this way. Nothing to be done about it, said Miss Pross, shaking her head. Touch that subject and he instantly changes for the worse. Better leave it alone. Sometimes he gets up in the middle of the night and can be heard by us overhead there, walking up and down in his room. Lady Bird has learned to know then that his mind is walking up and down in his old prison. She hears to him and they go on together walking up and down until he becomes calmer, but he never says a word of the true reason for his restlessness to her, and she finds it best not to mention it to him at all. In silence they go walking up and down together till her love and company have brought him to himself. Here they are, she said, rising and so putting an end to their conversation. And now we shall soon see hundreds of people. Miss Pross was a pleasant sight, taking off her darling's hat when she came upstairs. Her darling was a pleasant sight too, kissing her on the cheek and thanking her. The doctor was a pleasant sight too, looking on at them and telling Miss Pross how she spoiled Lucy in tones and with eyes that had as much spoiling in them as Miss Pross had. Mr. Lorry was a pleasant sight too, smiling at all this and thanking his lucky stars for having brought him in his declining years to a home like this. But no hundreds of people came to see these sights, and Mr. Lorry looked in vain for what Miss Pross had said to come true. dinner time and still no hundreds of people. It was a hot and heavy day, and after dinner Lucy suggested that they should sit outside under the plane tree in the air. Still the hundreds of people didn't present themselves. Mr. Darnay presented himself while they were sitting under the plane tree, but he was the only one. Dr. Manette received him kindly, and so did Lucy, but Miss Pross suddenly had a strange attack in her head and body and had to go inside. It was something that she quite frequently had. The doctor was in good form. He and Lucy looked so much alike at such times, and as they sat side by side, it was very pleasant to see the likeness between them. Tea time, and Miss Pross was making tea with another of her attacks, but still no hundreds of people. Mr. Carton dropped in, but he made only 2. The night was so very heavy that although they sat with the doors and windows open, they couldn't bear the heat. When they had finished taking tea, they all moved to one of the windows and looked out into the growing darkness. Lucy sat by her father, Darnay sat beside her, and Carton leaned against a window. "The raindrops are falling, large, heavy, and few," said Dr. Manette. "It comes slowly." "It becomes surely," said Carton. They spoke in low voices, as people watching and waiting mostly do, as people in a dark room, watching and waiting for lightning, always do. There was a great hurry in the streets of people speeding away to get shelter before the storm broke. The corner echoed with the sound of steps coming and going, yet not a footstep was there. "A multitude of people and yet solitude," said Darnay when they had listened for a while. "It's not impressive, Mr. Darnay?" asked Lucy. "Sometimes I have sat here of an evening and imagined those echoes to be the echoes of all the footsteps that are coming sooner or later into our lives. There's a great crowd coming one day into our lives, if that to be," said Sidney Carton in his moody way. The footsteps never stopped, and the hurry of them became more and more rapid. The corner echoed and re-echoed with the sound of feet. "Are all these footsteps destined to come to all of us, Miss Manette, or are we to divide them among us?" "I don't know, Mr. Darnay. It's a foolish idea, but I have imagined them to be the footsteps of the people who are to come into my life and my father's. I take them into mine," said Carton. "There's a great crowd bearing down upon us, Miss Manette, and I see them by the lightning." He added the last words as there was a bright flash which showed him leaning against the window. "And I hear them," he added again after a clap of thunder. "Here they come, fast, fierce, and furious." It was the rush and roar of rain that stopped him, for no voice could be heard above it. A memorable storm of thunder and lightning brought with that sweep of water, and there wasn't a moment's pause in crash and fire and rain until after the moon rose at midnight. The great bell of St. Paul's was striking one in the cleared air when Mr. Lorry set out on his return passage to Clerkenwell. "What a night it has been! Good night, Mr. Carton," he said as their ways parted. "Good night, Mr. Darnay. Shall we ever see such a night again together? Perhaps. See the great crowd of people with its rush and roar bearing down on them too."